I'm sitting here in Monmouth, Oregon with my two co-presenters, and we are so happy that you decided to join us the last day of the conference, one of the last sessions on a Friday. So thank you so much. We understand that you may decide to stay for part of this or all of it, or maybe in a few minutes you say this isn't for you and you want to pop out, and that's absolutely okay. Come and go as you please. We do have the presentation in the chat, so you're welcome to copy the link and then explore our presentation if you feel that that's a better use of your time, or if you want to dive deeper into some of the resources. So today we're going to be talking about teaching tech tools for pandemic and non-pandemic times. Again, my name is Alicia Wenzel, and I'm with Eliana, Belle, and Lauri Walker. Next slide, please. So I'm a teacher educator at Western Oregon University in Monmouth, Oregon. We're in the Willamette Valley, kind of like the cheap Napa of Oregon. I've been with Western about 10 years and was a middle school and elementary teacher before, and enjoyed embedding technology to engage, instruct, assess, and it's become more prevalent in my practice the past 5 years, but especially in the past year. Eliana?
Hi everyone, I'm Eliana Belle and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Jervis Elementary School. I am currently in my 3rd year of teaching and I'm also a grad student. And I've just been working a lot with technology throughout comprehensive distance learning and all of that. And it's been really helpful as well in my grad program since I've had a focus in STEM education. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you today.
Hi, I'm Lauri Walker and I am an 8th grade social studies teacher at Tillamook Junior High School. I have been teaching for 13 years, mostly at the high school level, but have been working with 7th and 8th graders the last couple of years. I am a graduate student at Western as well, and it's exciting to be able to take part in conferences like this. So I hope we are able to provide something that is useful for you today.
Thank you, Eliana and Lauri. I just must commend my two co-partners here. They are 2 students in my graduate class, and when I proposed the opportunity to present to all members, these were the 2 that jumped at the chance, and they are teaching full-time in addition to being grad students and having personal lives. So I am absolutely thrilled and honored that they're here to join us. It looks like the slides are locked. We'll take care of that in just a few minutes. Thank you for letting me know. If you're interested in answering this question in the chat, I'd love to know who's with us today. So if you could let us know what your position is, where you are, that'll just help us gauge a little bit better how to proceed. Eliana, next slide, if you would. Looks like we're covering both sides of the country so far. And excellent. And Midwest to boot. Excellent. So our rationales for using tech tools are spanning decades. So a lot of what we're presenting are things that we use across our K-20 spectrum, but you can see even early on in the 90s, it was a way to revolutionize the way students think and to give them access to the world. And even though we're coming up on, 20, 30 years later, this is still one of the reasons we do that. Eliana, next slide. It looks like there's quite a few people who might have skills and jobs that are outside of the K-20 classroom. Hopefully you'll still find some practices that are useful for your work. If not, thanks for being with us, and we appreciate you staying with us as much as you'd like. So we all realize that with technology, there are benefits and challenges. Some of the ones that we've talked about quite a bit in our classes and with our colleagues is that there's so many resources out there, and the resources help us help young people be better prepared for the world. Also, it allows us to have up-to-date information that we can be better able to provide relevant learning experiences for students. And in these days of non-face-to-face learning, it allows us to be connected to our students across the miles and still make learning accessible. That accessibility piece also is a challenge, however. We're still finding that some students just don't have what they need in order to be supported, included, engaged, and successful. There are quite a few other challenges, as you probably are well aware, with embedding technology in our work. As a parent, we're always worried about excessive screen time. It's a constant conversation in my house. And that technology can also be a distraction. So finding a balance, especially when their enjoyment tends to be part of screen and then their academic work is part of screen, we're really trying to find an appropriate balance for that. I haven't seen a lot of cheating on technology, but I definitely know that it exists. I kind of think that having technology tools can help students learn to be more resourceful, but we're always trying to teach them too that they need to cite their ideas and not just borrow somebody else's words or have the calculations done for them. I was wondering if there are other benefits or challenges that you are thinking about or dealing with in your work today that we don't have up here. If you do, I'd love you to add them to the chat box. And I promise if we borrow your ideas, we'll cite you. While you're thinking about those, if you're interested in doing that, the privacy issue is an area of technology integration. Oh yeah, Jacqueline, yes, the slides are locked on the PowerPoint or the Google Slides. I will adjust that as soon as I'm done sharing my bit. Thank you for that. Not having enough understanding of student privacy is a challenge for sure. And it's something that I'm trying to embed in my teacher education classes, even starting with my beginning undergrads, so that they're a lot more aware of the data they collect, how they manage it, and really keeping students safe. We also want to be able to create relationships where there's trust. And so students need to know that the teacher is aware of some of the issues related to online and privacy issues. Resistance to learning technology. Mary, thank you. Absolutely. I have found that over time, though, this is becoming a little less of an issue for some of my students. However, if they get stuck and their parents need to help, or their family members, sometimes we are seeing that there is some resistance because it's not a tool or a practice that they've been used to. Yeah, absolutely, Carrie. Accessibility is a challenge and a benefit. I absolutely cannot agree more. Thank you for adding to our list. Greg, great ones. I really appreciate that. So true. Platforms are, everything isn't always available. Yep, I'm even learning to post multiple items in my classes in multiple formats and trying them out so that my students, regardless of what they use, have access, but I'm still learning about that. Eliana, next slide. Thank you for posting your ideas about challenges and benefits. I wanted to share this Bloons taxonomy wheel. A lot of you are probably familiar with Ben Bloom and the cognitive levels of learning. And there are so many different infographics out there. But what I thought was really cool was as we try to think about what technology to use, we want to be thinking about, are we doing it in ways that is promoting lower cognitive development, mid cognitive development, or high cognitive development? For example, if I'm working with a group of students and I'm wanting them to just understand maybe the parts of a cell, that's pretty low level learning. So I'm going to try to identify a particular tech tool that would be maybe in the remember or the understand section so that the tool I'm using actually allows students to develop the lower cognitive skills. Also, if I'm trying to have students maybe compare attributes of cells to another type of item, that comparing is getting into analysis and maybe even evaluation. So just being mindful of the kind of tech tools that we use really align to the task in the curricular plan. I did not create this, so if you're interested in using it, there is a link on the bottom. Next slide. My co-presenters are going to be sharing with you lots of different tools today to teach, engage, support, and assess. And I wanted to provide you with quick access to some of what they're speaking about and just some others that I've used as an elementary and middle school teacher, but in the past 10 years, of course, as they've come about, to some of these different types of technology components. So anything that's underlined should take you to a place where there's either a how-to video or an example. And since we are trying to share so much with you at one time, I'm not going to click on these, but I'll let you do that on your own. Of course, if you have any questions, you will be able to access our information through our PowerPoint or Google Slides, and then we can answer those questions about these. Next. Again, an infographic that I love and borrowed. The information on the bottom is there for my citation. A big part of my work is driven by assessment. What do I want students to know and be able to do? And this one shows different types of instructional technology for assessment. I don't know all of these. I haven't used all of them, but I thought it was a really neat way to parse them out and see how some of them could be used in different facets. So as you're expanding your instructional technology repertoire, this might be a great tool, or even sharing it with those you work with. It might be a nice resource to be able to pass on. I'm going to let Eliana take over and share some of the practices she uses currently in her elementary classroom. Thanks, Eliana.
Thank you, Alicia. So again, I am Eliana Belle, and I am a kindergarten teacher. So a lot of the things that I am doing and sharing with you today are going to be centered around, the very littles, the primary, the primary grades. But of course, anything can be adapted for those upper grades as well. I wanted to start just by giving you guys a few tips for if you're looking into choosing your own technology, looking to kind of create your own activities. And the first tip I wanted to share with you guys is to link your activities to the ISTE standards, which are the technology and education standards. And if you click this link when you are able later to have access to these slides, it's going to take you to the standards on their website. And they have basically 7 domains going along the side. You can click on them and it will open up the 4 kind of substandards. Anything that is in this other, like this little blue color, has a definition, and there's little videos here too, which are always fun. And so that resource is there for you should you need it. And basically it just allows you to make sure that your technology activities just are really those higher level activities. So it's not something that's just going to be a substitution for something that could have been done on paper and pencil, right? So it's just going to make it so that your activities really get, in depth with what the students are doing. And these standards are already linked to the Common Core. Oops, I went back one. Sorry, guys. The Common Core state standards, as well as the Next Generation Science standards, and those newer mathematical practice standards. So it's already linking to everything we're using in our classroom. It's just going to make sure that we're getting those really great projects and linking technology in really good ways for our students. I'm going to move on to my next tip, which is just pick just a few platforms that you're going to use with your students throughout the entire school year. That doesn't mean that if something great comes along, you can't go ahead and use it. I do that all the time. There's so many great things out there. But this just means you're really going to work on them and develop students' skills with them for that entire school year. So if you pick something, in the beginning, they're going to spend a lot of time just learning how to use that tool, learning the different features. But if they're using it all year, as they get along further and further and they learn it more and more, then they'll be able to really start focusing on the creation piece. Okay, what can I make with this tool now that I know how to use it? And that's going to be a really great thing for them. And then the last tip I had was just to make sure that you're allowing lots of opportunities for collaboration. So, they shouldn't just be sitting on a computer by themselves in a corner, doing their own project. With technology, it really opens up doors for them to be collaborating on lots of projects with lots of other people. They can be collaborating with other classmates. They can be collaborating with students in other grade levels at their school, other schools in the district, other schools in different states, even schools in different countries. So it really depends how big you want to go with it. So those are my first 3 tips. If you're looking to start technology integration, use those ISTE standards, pick a couple that you're going to use all year long, couple platforms, and make sure that you have a lot of chances for collaboration. Next, I'm going to tell you some of the things I've been using throughout comprehensive distance learning that I most certainly will continue using after distance learning when all my students are back in the classroom as well. So the first thing is I'm going to tell you about our learning management system, which is Google Classroom. Some of you might be using this already. Some of you might be using Seesaw with the younger students as well. They're both great. But basically, I'm going to continue to use this because it's like a big binder. You know, it keeps all their things organized in one place, which I love, especially because if you know younger students, actual physical like folders and paper is really hard for them to manage. You know, they're cramming it in there. They're, you know, all the paper's getting all crinkled up, torn, ripped, all that stuff. So you won't have those problems if you have everything in this digital space for them. So that's why I'm really excited to continue to use this in my classroom. I also use the Stream tab on Google Classroom that I have shown here as a way to communicate really big upcoming events, videos, things like that to parents, since a lot of my students' parents are using this with them at home. So that's a good place for them to see what's going on, what's happening. I also wanted to take this moment to briefly share some parent communication apps with you in case you're interested in starting to use one of those. And so I have Class Dojo listed as well as Class Tag. Both of these apps are free. They both can be downloaded on iPhones or Android, or they can be used on a computer through a browser. They are both kind of set up like Facebook. You have a news feed, you get to post reminders, post photos of students, all kinds of things, and parents can react to it. They can hit like, they can comment, and they can also message you directly as well as you messaging them directly. So I really love these apps. I will say that if you have a lot of parents that speak a language other than English, Class Tag is going to be a really good choice because they just offer a little bit more when it comes to translation features. Everything on their app gets translated. It's easy. It's just a little easier for that than Dojo. So moving on, I've also been using a lot of Google Slides. It's probably one of my favorite tools to use with my kids. And the reason for that is that it's really easy for kids to post photos in Google Slides. I don't know if you've ever done with your students one of those scavenger hunts where they go and they find something, but that could be an independent activity that they do through Google Slides, and they just take a picture of whatever they found, and then they can see what other friends found, things like that. So for that reason, it's good for community building. And I want to show you just kind of how this is done. And my example is that they're using Google Slides in their plant unit, and they want to show a picture they made of the first thing they would plant in their garden if they had the chance. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and hopefully you can see the video. And this just kind of shows how I set up the Google Slides. I have students' names already made on every slide. They can go through, find their name, click insert, image, and then all the way at the bottom of that menu that comes up, there's a camera button. And then they can just put in a picture of what they made. And it takes a little while to, you know, kind of show them how to put it right up to the camera and all that. But once you've taught it, you know, it's really easy for them to do. And then just make sure it's highlighted and insert, and then they can put their picture right in. And the nice thing about this is that after they've finished, you know, they can move it around, they can resize it if they want, but that's also something that we can do as teachers after they're done too, if we need to. But they can just go through the other slides when they're finished and look at what other students posted, which is what I love. Obviously, I didn't take the time to post a bunch of other photos in this demo, but you can kind of get the idea that they would go through and they would be able to, you know, see what other students wanted to put in their garden. And so I love it for that purpose. And let's go back up. The other tool that I used so much, it was a complete lifesaver during CDL, is Pear Deck. And now Pear Deck, our school district did pay for the premium version, but I think they do have a 90-day free trial if you're interested in checking it out. But I was making all these video lessons, and, you know, I would do my best impersonation of like a children's television show, and I would ask my question, and I would sit there and I would nod, and I would kind of be, you know, oh, great, you know, thank you for your answer. But I didn't know if they answered. I didn't know if they're even in the same room as their computer anymore. So the reason why I like Pear Deck is because it actually gives them something to do, and it actually allows them to answer those questions that you want to ask them. So I'm going to show you just a presentation that I made through Pear Deck. And this lesson I made to go along with one of our Bridges math lessons, which is a curriculum that we use. And so the first thing that Pear Deck takes you to is it asks how you're feeling today, which I love because I've actually been able to see a student mark down that they're feeling sad. And I can later ask them about that, and then they can start a conversation with me about why they're feeling that way. So it's really helpful, but you can also skip it down here as well. I just kind of start giving information on the first slide, like how to move to the next slide. You need to click the little arrow, letting them know these headphones down here, if they click the play button, that will allow them to hear the audio that I've added. Pear Deck makes it so easy to add audio, and you make your Google Slides first and it's an add-on. So you make everything Google Slides and then you can just add your audio right in instead of using something else. So that's really nice. These first few slides, I just had audio for them to practice on their own. One of my favorite ones to use though is enter a number. They can click here and type it in. They can also click the arrow and make a number go up, and I give them a little reminder visually right here as well in my slide. And then they can go on. There's also click and drag elements, so they can click and drag a dot onto an image that you have on the screen. You can add many dots. So on this one, I have a ton of dots. So you can just be adding dots all over the place. And then again, I went back to having a number one. Another really great one is the draw tool, but our students have Chromebooks and I wouldn't recommend it because the trackpad is really hard for students to draw. So I just use these two mainly for students with Chromebooks. And then I have them kind of self-assess at the end, again, by moving their dot. And then I give them a slide to help them know how to log out. So that's how I use Pear Deck. And then the last one, I'm not going to talk about too much. This is Flipgrid. It's pretty popular right now. It's a great tool so that students can video record themselves. They can comment on other students' videos and record themselves and watch it. It has this reads it out loud to students, any directions you put in, and it translates them to other languages. So it's really nice to have this tool. And in this area over here with the picture, you can add pictures or videos to kind of remind them what their video should be about. So Flipgrid is definitely a favorite of mine as well. Oops, I think I stopped sharing. Sorry, hit the wrong button there. You guys know this happens with our technology. It's so fun. I think it should be up now. Perfect. Back up here. And I just wanted to show some ideas for things I'm going to continue to use once we're back in the classroom. So I don't know how many of you have heard of Jamboard, but Jamboard's also through Google. I love my Google tools. That just went ahead. Don't know why I didn't click the link, but there it is. So I'm just going to show you a self-assessment that I plan on having students use on their Chromebooks after we do activities live in the classroom. And basically for this Jamboard, I created a self-assessment in Google Slides with the colored squares and the clip art and everything. And then I just screenshotted it and put it right into Jamboard and resized it so it was pretty big. And it allows students to kind of self-assess and tell me where they feel they are after a lesson. For younger students, I would definitely go ahead and write their names in on this Post-it note feature. If you have older students in elementary though, save yourself some time and just let them go ahead and write their own name on the sticky note. I definitely want to just go ahead and do this for them at this age. But I made all their names on sticky notes. You can resize them to make them pretty small and still be able to see their names. And then after that, students can just start going in when you share it through your learning management system. And as you can see, they just put their Post-it wherever they feel they are. So this is something that you can keep, it's digital, you can store it, and it just gives you some really good information on where students are at. And next, I have as well a Padlet. Padlet's an app that allows students to go in and kind of post things like on a board, and it allows you to see who posted what if you select that in settings. So I love it for that. They can post pictures, audio, video, and even little drawings. And so my idea for this, once we're back in the classroom, is to be able to use this as kind of a KWL chart. So I'd have one Padlet for what do you know, what do you want to learn, and then another Padlet at the end for what did you learn. And the purpose for this would be that it gives them many ways to show what they know. If they want to, explain it verbally, if they want to draw it, they have lots of different options for how they share that information. And it's also great for formative assessment because you can keep this again and hold on to it and use it to inform what you teach. And so it's really easy to keep track of. And then again, seeing who posted what is really helpful as well. And the last thing I just wanted to leave you all with today is a fun little idea for those really young students, and that is the IT team. And so the idea behind the IT team is that when you go out, again, when we're back in the classroom with all of our students, and you're having students do a tech activity, say you're using Google Slides, and you have 3 or 4 kids who go, I love Google Slides. I've been using it all year. I know how to do it. I know how to fix little problems. I know a lot about it. They could volunteer, raise their hand, volunteer to be on your IT team. And you have these little crowns made up, that go on the head. I made a 100-day crown today, something similar to this, a paper crown. Super easy, just print them out and staple them. And they can wear those. And then when other students have a question or they need help with something, they can ask a student on the IT team first. And then, of course, if they can't find a solution, then they would come ask me. But it's just a fun little way to have students helping each other out and teaching other students how to use tech as well. So I'll leave you guys with that. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it over to my co-presenter, Lauri Walker.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hi, I'm Lauri Walker, and again, I am a social studies teacher at Tillamook Junior High School. I'm currently teaching 8th grade US history. So I'm going to be focusing on things that we have been using specifically at the secondary level. We do also use some of the things that Eliana mentioned, but I didn't want to take away from her presentation or repeat things that you've already heard. So I'm just going to focus on what we do here at my school. So our LMS system that we are currently using is Canvas. We did use Google Classroom prior to COVID, pre-COVID, and that's going to be our marker going forward. And we love Canvas so far. It definitely is a learning curve, but we have been able to give students access to Active Classroom, which I'll go over in a little bit. There's Google assignments. We have Newsela, all of these things, as well as Kami and some other things that teachers are able to link directly into Canvas. And so students, it's a one-stop shop for students and parents, because the whole district is using Canvas. And so it makes it much easier for families to negotiate how to get into where their students need to be doing their work. That was one problem we had last spring when school closed suddenly, is every school or every teacher was doing something different, and it made it very confusing for parents and families. So we wanted to make that a little easier. We are planning on continuing to use Canvas next year, even if we go back to school in a full-time, regular, quote unquote, normal model, just in case. So we will still maintain a Canvas presence. My school currently is in hybrid. We started hybrid the end of January. So I see 2 different cohorts of students, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. And I teach to the students that are in my classroom, and then I also broadcast teach to the students that are sitting in other classrooms. So it's a little different way. The students currently are not traveling between classrooms, but they will be soon. So, and then we were in distance learning up until January. Active Classroom, this is the social science curriculum that we use. It was actually adopted 2 years ago prior to COVID. And so our current 8th graders actually have a lot of experience with it already. And it was not a huge transition for them to be using it and linking to it from Canvas. So it's kind of been a godsend for that. Yeah, we can go ahead. So I recorded this using Screencastify, which is another item that I was going to talk to you guys about. So this is Active Classroom. I don't know if the sound is...
In my district, we use Active Classroom for social science at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level. Active Classroom is an LMS that holds thousands of different assignments for social studies that is organized into curriculum maps. And I teach 8th grade US history, so I just want to briefly show you what that looks like. If you look over here on the left, it has everything organized into units. And this was based on feedback that Active Classroom received from the social studies departments in the district, at least what students in the 8th grade needed to know about US history. It also includes state standards that are included. And you can go week by week. And what we usually do is pick and choose which assignments we think fit the standards best and that our students are able to accomplish without being too difficult, especially when we were in CDL and the students didn't always have us there to help them. But as you can see, there are multiple different types of assignments. I'll just go into one to give you an idea of what it looks like. This is an Atlas assignment. I use these frequently, especially at the beginning of a unit, to give students a visual representation and of where we're talking about. The Atlas assignments also include timelines and vocabulary. This has the answers turned on because it's the teacher version. So it gives students a chance to practice their mapping skills and find information. This one covers the various tribes. I'm sure there were more than this, but at least some of the larger tribes in North America at the time of European contact. It discusses the transatlantic or Columbian exchange. And so there's lots of different things, and it's set up very similarly to most textbooks that I've seen on US history, at least at this grade level. When I go into an assignment to actually give it to my students, from here I would click on the symbol over here. The other thing that's nice about these is that if I have students who need to enable to have this text-to-speech put in, they can click on this and the text will be read to them. Also, if they need to have a language translated, you would highlight a word and then click on the translate button. And right now I have it set to translate to Spanish, and this is what it translates to. So for your English language learners, this program is more accessible to them than just a regular textbook. During CDL, we were able to use this program almost exclusively. We added a few little things to supplement, but for the most part, at least at the beginning of the year when we were in CDL, this program was perfect for our needs. And like I said, our 8th graders were already familiar with it, having used the program last year. For grading, when the students turn in their assignments, I have the assignment list here. I would then click on grade over here and I could go student by student. Some things like multiple choice questions are answered automatically or are corrected automatically. And so I then really only have to grade the more written responses and not multiple choice. But it does still cut back on the amount of grading I have to do. I do have to record these grades myself. As far as I know, Active Classroom does not speak to Synergy, which is the student data management program we use in my district. So I normally, because I'm kind of old school, will write the grades down in a grade book and then transfer them over. There are ways that you can export grades and then import them into whatever data management program your district uses. That's just the way that works for me. So there are options for that.
Okay, so cut that short a little bit. I'm sorry if it went on for a little too long, I think. It's hard to know when putting these together what is too long and what's not. If you go to the link for our presentation, though, if you want to look, especially if you're a social studies teacher or a social science teacher, whichever title you prefer, you can listen to the whole thing if you want. I did a similar thing on Newsela. So there's a video kind of showing how I used Newsela for my social studies class. My district paid for the subscription to Newsela and linked it in with our Canvas. So I can assign, I can give assignments from Newsela directly from Canvas to my students, and they can access it the same way. Eliana, do you mind going back to the previous slide? Thank you. Okay, so I just want to finish going over these. We use Google Slides and Docs extensively. The way that we're set up right now, instead of having students working in small groups, I actually have classrooms be small groups. So my cohort of students, and then the other history teacher down the hall, his cohort of students, and et cetera. We can put together slideshows with students creating the slides, and we all sharing it together and presenting it to the entire social studies group. Newsela, I talked about. Both videos in there were done with Screencastify. There's a free version that gives you a 5-minute video and some limited editing materials or ways to edit things. There's also a teacher discount. I believe it was $30 for a year that I went ahead and purchased myself, just because sometimes it's hard to limit myself to 5 minutes when I'm teaching students something that has a lot of detail to it. And instead of Zoom, we use Google Meet at my school. This goes for meetings with students. It goes for the staff meetings. We just have found that Google Meet works really well for us. Okay, Eliana, you can skip to the third, not the next one, but the one after that. And then just lastly, some other areas, some of my colleagues here at my school that they use for different subjects. Explore Learning and Science World were recommended by one of our 7th grade science teachers. Kami is used for both the math and science departments. IXL was recommended by one of our special ed teachers, as was GymKit. And I do have a picture of a Kami assignment, this photograph that has the phases of the moon on it. That was taken from an actual student assignment. So I could put in a little bit of what that looks like in Kami. And then I have linked to their pages in here. I'm pretty sure Explore Learning is a subscription, but some of you may be able to get your districts to pay for it if you're not already doing that. And so that is it from the secondary level. Hopefully there was something useful in there.
Thanks, Lauri. Eliana, thank you for toggling through our slides for us. Appreciate that. One of the nice things I've found with all of the tools that we've shared is that they are very modifiable for most of the grade levels. There's definitely a learning curve for students, so providing the necessary supports as they learn how to access, navigate, be safe, and use effectively is really important. But you could use something as simple as Pear Deck and really pare it down for a kinder's needs, as well as make it pretty complex for middle, high school, or even college level too. So a lot of these are cross grade levels, cross content areas, and really give students a lot of autonomy a lot of collaboration opportunities and opportunities for stretching too, which is nice. A few parting notes. We recognize that tech tools can be great, but we want to kind of just remind you to protect students' privacy and continue to work towards equitable access for all learners. Sometimes that is out of our hands, like the number of Chromebooks that we have, or how fast the service is. Some students might be out without wireless or Wi-Fi. They might not actually even have support at home or somebody to kind of encourage them to turn things in and keep on top of them. So we just have to do the best we can to ensure access for all. We want to use tools to support learners and transform learning. Sometimes having a worksheet on paper and then just having students actually draw on an iPad is really great for them, especially if they're working on manual dexterity or engagement. But that's more of a horizontal move where you're just replacing one kind of technology for that worksheet. But I think if it engages students, then I'm okay with that. Not everything has to be transformative, especially if we're just trying to engage and get students practicing some of the foundational skills. But we shouldn't sacrifice learning just because we found something that's sparkly or shiny or very whistly. Again, be patient with yourself as you're learning some of these tools. There are great tutorials out there. Some of your students may actually be awesome at teaching you some of these things. So you could even have like a tech share day where students are coming in and they could be the one that wears the crown or the badge, and they can share some of what they know, and everybody could advance their tech skills and usage. But kids, while they're pretty resilient and learn lots of things, I've also found creating some mini screencasts for families to be really useful so they know how to help on their end, because a lot of this might be new and they don't always have somebody to help them learn. We do need to reflect on the usefulness of the tool so that it is helping us engage, instruct, assess in meaningful ways. And we don't want to be creating more work for students, ourselves, or family. Select tools that work for you. Both Lauri and Eliana have shared some great tools. And while I've borrowed and stolen quite a few from them, some of them don't work for me in my classes. So just get to know the ones that work best for you and that you can help your students learn. And one thing we didn't speak a lot about is while we're developing academic, social, emotional, behavioral, even some psychomotor skills through use of these tech tools, we also have to talk about building students' digital literacy and digital citizenship skills. So don't skimp on those lessons. Eliana mentioned the ISTE website and their standards. They have lots of great resources on how to develop digital literacy. And so I encourage you to look at some of those if having these conversations are new to you and your students. Next slide. And this is where we leave some time for you to ask some questions if you happen to have it or have them. I see some of you have posted some questions and comments in the chat, and I really appreciate that. I'm going to be posting the link again to our slide show. So if you want to access any of the resources, you have them. But we definitely want to be mindful of your time today as it's the end of the conference and at least a beautiful sunny Friday here out in Oregon. Thank you all for joining us. This really was a pleasure. I wish we could see you in person and have a lot more sharing. The show and tell I've always loved. And if you have awesome tech tools or practices, if you want to pop those into the chat box as a parting gift, that would be fantastic too. Otherwise, thank you so much. We wish you luck with your tech integration. And we'll just hang out if anybody wants to ask questions or just continue to chat. That warms my heart, Lauri. Thank you. We wanted this to be practical. Eliana, Or Lauri, any comments that you can offer to Mary about how to deal with the feedback aspect of the Screencastify?
I've never had any feedback on my Screencastify, so I'd assume that might be something having to do with the microphone. So I don't know if you use an external microphone or if you just use your computer's mic, or if you have speakers. That can also, I have speakers in my classroom that are hooked up, and those create feedback with some things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. Normally when I'm recording, I'm in a quiet room at my house, and so I don't get any feedback on there.
Is that what you meant, Mary, or were you talking about giving feedback, like narrative comments to students about work?
Yeah, I thought there in one of the slides there's talking about getting feedback from students through Screencastify, not the feedback on the microphone, but yeah.
Got it.
Sorry. I haven't used it for that yet. I have received that from some of my college professors. They've given audio or video feedback. I don't know if they use Screencastify.
Flipgrid might be easier for that, because then students can post a video of something and then you can do a video comment and give them feedback that way. I think that's a really easy way to do the video back and forth, especially for those younger kids, since they can't read written feedback. So that would help with that a lot.
Yeah, I've just used it briefly, and just to kind of record a presentation that I then just shared, but I didn't know that there was potentially a way to do feedback. But yeah.
Mary, I'm sorry. The way I've used, I used TechSmith Capture. It was Jing formerly, and then they switched over. So I do videos of my students' work. I might pull up their presentation or a paper or something that they've written. And then I will use the screen capture portion. I can highlight portions of the text as I'm talking about it. And then I can save that file and send it to them through our email system. And that way they can hear me and see what I'm pointing out as I'm discussing elements of their work.
Oh, that's a really great idea. Actually, I hadn't thought about using it for giving feedback back to students on their assignments. That's a really great idea.
I try to model, since I teach assessment and engagement, and try to show ways to differentiate. I try to provide lots of different ways. And sometimes, believe it or not, I get so tired of typing and I never know if they even read it. So my hope is once in a while, I'll mix it up by giving them a recorded video showing their work, and they can actually hear my voice. And whether they like that or not, it's just something different as a way to get feedback. And it's great for students who are more auditory learners. But yes, it took some practice. I actually had to record multiple times because I try to keep them pretty short, and brevity is not my strength. So I had to find ways to give feedback quickly. So that's a skill I'm working on.
Me too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Another tool that's good for feedback is it's a Chrome extension. So it's really easy to just add to your Chrome browser. It's, I think it's pronounced Motely, but I'm not for sure. Looks like Motely. And that allows you to do audio feedback, which I use with my kids too sometimes, since it's just easy, and it transcripts. So it also can produce a written form for you if there's a parent with them or someone that wants to read what you're saying. But yeah, it's pretty easy, and it just goes right in.
Nice.
Any other questions?
We have a list of references, and then on the final page of the presentation, I listed our names and email addresses at Western. So if you have questions, you could get in touch with one of us or all of us and continue the conversation if you're interested. We also want to thank Ebony, our Northwest eLearning host. Thank you so much for making sure that we looked good and sounded good, and we're able to share our information.
And told us how long we had left.
Kept us on track for sure.
Yes.
Well, I think that's all the time we have. So wishing you all a great day, a great weekend, and a good rest of the year. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Ebony, let me know when you finish recording.